extended to us at various stages over the last 3 years. It's a great privilege for me to know you and for rest of my team to know you, and we really look forward to hearing you.
No, thank you very much. It's the same from this side. It's great meeting you and working.
I don't know, we are missing you, Gonzalo. We are not, at least I can't hear you fully what you're saying.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better. Much better.
Okay. I'm going to get rid of the headphones. No, I was telling you that I'm happy. I'm so happy to work with you and looking forward to seeing you by the end of June.
Wonderful, excellent. But I hope this time you're coming for at least 1 month, not like 1 week.
1 month.
This time you have to go to each of our states. You know, last time you went only to 2 states, but this time all states.
Well, in fact,
and I hope UNICEF colleagues will make that happen.
Yes. I have 2 trips to India this year, so we can make it.
15 days then. Okay.
That's right.
Minal, can we start?
Sure, sir. We'll start. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to have for a brown bag session today Dr. Gonzalo Hernández Licona, who will be speaking on design evaluations. I will begin by introducing our speaker. Dr. Gonzalo is now the director of the Multidimensional Poverty Peer Network, where he coordinates 61 countries and 19 international institutions to advance and exchange ideas about implementing multidimensional poverty indicators. He's also an expert for country-led evaluations, working for UNICEF, the Global Evaluation Initiative, and the UN. He is Senior Research Fellow at 3IE, Research Associate at Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, member of the Advisory Evaluation Panel at IFAD, member of the Board of Trustees at El Colegio de Mexico. Dr. Gonzalo was the Executive Secretary of the National Council for the Evaluation of Social Policy between 2005 and 2019, where he coordinated the evaluation of the social and the measurement of poverty at the national, state, and municipality level. From 2020 onwards, he was the General Director of Monitoring and Evaluation at the Ministry of Social Development. Between 1991 and 2002, he was a full-time professor at the Instituto Tecnologio Autónomo de Mexico, that's ITAM. He is still a part-time professor at ITAM. Dr. Gonzalo also was a part of the 15 independent group of scientists who wrote the 2019 Global Sustainable Development Report for the United Nations. He has a PhD in economics from the University of Oxford, MA in economics from the University of Essex, and a BA from ITAM. It's indeed a pleasure for us, Dr. Gonzalo, to have you here. Today's session will focus on design evaluations. Particularly, the talk will be about the importance of the program design evaluation as part of the evaluation tools in a country's monitoring and evaluation systems. The main idea is that it is important to assess, even before we assess impact or process, if the design of the program or the scheme is logical and has the potential to achieve results. It happens very often that the idea of the program makes sense, but the design is not optimal and thus it affects processes and results. So in today's session, Dr. Gonzalo will address how do we produce design evaluations. And considering that our team at DMEO is heavily focused on evaluation, we have today among our participants several staff members who are deeply involved in conducting various evaluation studies. So it's really indeed a privilege for us to have this learning experience with you, Dr. Gonzalo. To begin with, we will have opening remarks from our Deputy Director General, Mr. Anthony Syriac. Following that, we will hand over the stage to Dr. Gonzalo, who will make his presentation. This will be followed by a question and answer session for about 10 minutes, and I request everybody in the audience to please post their questions in the chat box, which we will take on during the Q&A. And finally, I would request our Director General, Dr. Shekhar Bonu, to make the closing remarks at the end of the session. So handing over to Mr. Anthony Syriac, our Deputy Director General, Evaluations. Anthony, sir.
Thank you very much, Bhavana. And thanks once again to Dr. Gonzalo, who is one of the premier experts on evaluation globally. So wonderful to have you, Dr. Gonzalo, with us. Now, design evaluation, I'm just trying to relate it to what I heard some 25 years when I joined when I joined the program evaluation organization, which was the historical precursor to the current DMEO. There used to be a lot of talk about the need for public expenditure assessment. And finally, in the headlines of newspapers, many business papers and economic papers, it came out that delivery makes the difference. And there was a lot of debate around the subject that it is delivery, not the commitment of funds, that makes the difference. Over time, the correction of delivery, mid-course corrections to the delivery mechanism became very, very important. But increasingly now, the public policy debate is concentrated on program designs, specifically because delivery assessments and delivery evaluations and process evaluations finally point towards the faulty program designs, and then corrections, and then downward corrections to processes. Everything becomes complicated. So what is important is to make the program or project design perfect, to suit to the objectives of the program at hand, and then start with the implementation. So I also pose a question: design evaluations, I can think of it at two stages. One, the project appraisal phase. So project appraisal phase is also a kind of design evaluation, but it takes more of an assessment, an economic assessment of the project itself or the scheme itself, than thinking assiduously about the project design or the scheme design. So integrating design evaluation at the project appraisal stage is one thing, and second is evaluating the project design or the program design at early stages concurrently with the early process evaluation. And I would eagerly look forward to Dr. Gonzalo's varied experience and profound depth of knowledge to get enlightened on these two aspects. Without wasting further time, over to you, Bhavna, to invite Dr. Gonzalo to this session.
Thank you very much, Anthony, sir, for setting that context. I would now request our very eminent speaker for the day, Dr. Gonzalo, to please begin his presentation.
Thank you very much, Bhavana. Thank you very much, Anthony, and thank you very much, Dr. Bono and the team, because it's really a pleasure working with you, and it's really a pleasure exchanging with you ideas about evaluation. As Dr. Bono, we were chatting just before, and we were saying that we've been working quite nicely over the past 3 years, even in the middle of COVID. So, and I'm really looking forward to keeping working with you this year and the following years. I think the team their team is a very, very good team with bright ideas, with great ideas of doing things in terms of evaluation and in a great direction. So congratulations just in advance again, Dr. Bono and the team. And let me just start straight away with a talk about design evaluation. And I have to start by saying that, I mean, as I said, like almost 2 or 3 years ago when I was there, that one of the most important challenges of building a monitoring and evaluation system is both on the technical side and also on the political side. How can we do that? How can we have a comprehensive evaluation, which is not evaluation system, which is not a burden from the bureaucratic point of view, but is comprehensive, and it requires the different elements that we need. I remember that in Mexico at the very beginning, Congress thought that with only one type of evaluation and having them for all programs, with one type of evaluation, we will be able to see everything about the program. I mean, it is very tempting to say that, because if you are going to evaluate the program, you can say, hey, since you are evaluating the program, why don't you get all these answers about the program, about the impact, about the design, about the process, about the working towards results. So it's very tempting to do that. Nevertheless, is not very, at the end of the day, having only one type of evaluation to evaluate everything about the program is problematic, because it's very difficult to find a single technical methodology to have the vision of the whole program. So we were talking some time ago that it will be very important to have a set of evaluations, a set of instruments. So all together, we can say that we have a proper monitoring and evaluation system. So in the case of, can you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So when I cannot. Oh, here it is. So in this chart, this is one of my favorite charts that when I want to talk about an M&E system, is how can we accommodate in each country in particular. It doesn't have to be exactly the same for all countries. I mean, all countries are different. So how do you have a monitoring and evaluation system with all the necessary elements? From the Mexican point of view, it was important to have the long-term objectives, then the planning part, in which here the analysis of programs, the log framework for programs, I'm going to talk about later more. It was very important when we started in 2007. And then the various types of evaluations where you have, for instance, an annual evaluation plan, and therefore you need different types of evaluation. The other element, the other pillar of the monitoring and evaluation is the way in we're going to improve programs due to the evaluations and the findings, which is, of course, one of the most difficult parts. We are not talking today about that, but we have to keep in mind that is a very important part of the M&E system. And of course, how can we report that in a systematic way? So when we try to set an evaluation plan for the country or for the state, of course, it's not very, and we have limited resources, is how can we accommodate the most important evaluations for the most relevant programs? And we have to choose. So every year we have to choose this type of evaluation for these programs. And then the following year, we have another type of evaluation for another program. One way of looking at the cycle of programs, and then what type of evaluation we will be needing at that moment. As Anthony was saying before, is to have this type of reflection. Say, hey, what is the type? Which are the main questions we would like to answer? And then, when we agree on the type of questions, we then go to the type of evaluation that we need for that moment for that program. So, for example, when we start with a program, when a new program is about to start, or we are thinking about a new program, I mean, a very important question is, hey, what are we trying to solve here? What is the problem that we want to solve? And are there any other programs who will be doing that instead? Why do we need a new program? And this is a very important question for the Ministry of Finance, of course. When we say we need a program because of this and that, hey, why do you need it that for? And then see let's imagine that we have a program already, or we already decided to have that program for whatever reason is there. Then another, and that's the center of today's talk, it's another question is the design of this program the suitable one for this program, for this problem? So here is when the design evaluation it's there. So as we were saying before, the main question here is, are we completely sure that delivering these services in this way is the best way to solve the problem that we want to solve, right? And we have to remember that public policy is an art. It's not like a mathematical equation saying, hey, you just push this button and then you solve that problem. No, we are dealing with people. We are dealing with people who are trying to produce the best public policy. But it's not very clear that we have a clear way of designing public policy. Therefore, we constantly are trying to see if we are doing well or not. Trial and error all the time. And here is where the design evaluation is very useful for us, because the main element is we have to think, we have to push the public policy people to say, hey, why are we sure that if we deliver X, in this way, we're going to solve the problem that we are aiming for? And then, of course, I don't go much more, but there are other questions, and therefore other questions will need other types of evaluations, impact evaluation, process evaluation, and all that. But what I wanted to say here is, it will be important to say first, to think first carefully, what is the question we want to answer at this very moment for this program? And it makes sense that a new program, or a program that is about to start because it's a mandatory thing by the government or anyone, we have to say, hey, okay, we do have that program, it is there. Let's really ask ourselves carefully if this is the best design that we have. So in this set of evaluations, we may have the diagnostic, the design, the consistency, the processes, the synthetic assessments, the impact. We may have various ways of analyzing the program. One of those is the design evaluation in here, right? So this evaluation is not answering all the questions of the program, but it's going to answer a key one. And I have to tell you that, one second. I have to tell you that this design evaluation in the case of Mexico was very important because Coneval, together, the evaluation unit Coneval, together with the Ministry of Finance, we decided to have log frameworks for all programs in 2007. So the main reason to have that, the log frameworks for all programs, is to make the emphasis that programs should work for results. That is not true that the aim of the program is just delivering the services, or is just spending the 100% of the budget every year. Because usually, sometimes we assess programs by saying, hey, you deliver, you really you aggregate the budget. No, we have to think about results. And if we think about results, we have to think carefully if the design of the program makes sense, if it is logical, right? Is it true that if we want to reduce unemployment, we need to have this type of capacity training, of trainings for unemployed people? And what type of training do we need in order to reduce unemployment? And what do we need in order to have our trainings? What type of outputs we are looking for, what type of activities, and what type of outcomes and goals. So in the Mexican case, we spent a lot of time between 2007 onwards, for many years, trying to reflect with programs saying, hey, just don't only deliver things, think why this program, delivering this product, delivering these services, is the best we can do in order to reduce or to improve the problem that we are facing. So in the Mexican case, because we spend so much time trying to communicate this idea for programs saying, hey, we need to think of results, and we need to think of how are we going to measure success in the program. Is it true that we're going to measure success by the percentage of expenditure in the year, or by the percentage of unemployment which was reduced, or by the number of the percentage of people with less undernutrition? And if we want to have better nutrition, is it true that we have to deliver this, that, or that? So we made a lot of effort to think about it. And that is why it was very obvious to have afterwards for programs, for many programs, for most programs, an evaluation about design. So, and this type of evaluation were very important for the Ministry of Finance again. So the Ministry of Finance says, hey, if I'm going to give you money to deliver this product, this service, we have to make sure that we have to do this in order to reduce results. So for the Ministry of Finance was important, and of course for line ministries was important, saying, hey, if I'm going to do this in my ministry, we have to make sure that it's the best design. So in this evaluation, we assess how the program is logically thought out, right? And again, we have so many ideas, and in the history of mankind, public policy, we have had so many ideas, and some of those ideas are not very good. We have to accept that, and they are not very good because perhaps we didn't think carefully about it. Perhaps because we woke up one day and say, hey, I have a bright idea, why don't we do this? And perhaps a good idea, but the design was not logical. So I've seen, at least in the case of Mexico, so many programs whose ideas were right, but the design was not the ideal one, because it's very it's very difficult to have all the answers when you start a new program. And therefore, this evaluation is about answering these type of questions. What is the problem we are trying to solve? What are the results that we are thinking? Who is suffering from this problem? How many people do we have with this problem? Why this intervention chosen over others? Are we sure that a similar service or a similar program with this design has been successful in other places? In other words, were we able to analyze different designs in different places? I mean, of course, it's clear that the Mexican context is different from the Indian context, right? But if a design of a program didn't work in Mexico, and we are using the same program in other places, perhaps we may have a problem there. What goods and services are meant to be delivered? How, by whom? And of course, at the center of the design evaluation, at least in the Mexican case, we have the analysis of the log frame. And of course, these will be different in other countries. Perhaps you don't talk about log frames, you talk about the theory of change or any logical way of analyzing of designing a program. Therefore, this emphasis on the log frame may change from country to country, right? And of course, another key element of this type of evaluation is this question is, does this intervention overlap with other intervention, which is very common in our country, right? It's very common that the Ministry of A has a very similar program as the Ministry of B. Sometimes they don't talk between each other, and sometimes they overlap in some of the interventions. Sometimes that's good because they are complements. Sometimes it's a bad idea because they don't work together, right? So if we have a program which is similar and it's overlapping with other one, we have to be careful. We have to see that, right? So having said that, let me go straightforward to the way in we have been working with this type of evaluation. At the beginning, when we started the whole evaluation process in 2007-8, this evaluation, the design evaluation, was only a cabinet analysis. So we thought about the limited resources, and therefore, at that time there was a very interesting evaluation in the States, in the United States, called the PART, the Program Rating Analysis Tool, something like that. And the good thing about that type of evaluation is that it was a cabinet analysis, but it was very rigorous, in which you have various questions where you simply have to answer yes or no. So, do you have, we'll see some examples later. Is the objective of the program clear in a document? Is it clear, that document? Is it clear that objective? Is it clear the type of beneficiaries that we are aiming for? Do we have the number of people who will be working with the beneficiaries? So there were many yes and no answers, and the program should produce proof of what they were saying. If they were saying, yes, we have this, yes, we have that, yes, we have this other element, we were asking for proof. Okay, where is the document? Where is the place where we can see that all these elements that are needed to analyze a good design are there? So we started with this type of evaluation in the design evaluation with a cabinet analysis of around 30 questions with yes or no, and with asking the proof from the program. So we don't need to go to the field to analyze the program. So it was we wanted to have this for many programs, and we wanted to insist that the logical framework was very important, and therefore we want to go to many countries, to many programs with this evaluation. Now, then we realized years later that for some programs, it was very important to go to the field, right? Just to make sure that what is happening in the field is reflected in this cabinet analysis. And both together, the cabinet analysis and the field work was important. And the field work is about analyzing the most important processes and to see if the design of the program makes sense with those processes. So we were approaching the processes evaluation, which is another type of evaluation. We were not doing strictly a process evaluation, but we were trying to see in the field for some programs if what happened in cabinet analysis, it was reflected in the field. And for many programs, this type of evaluation, putting together the cabinet analysis and the field work for the program was really important, because one of the challenges for a manager of any program is trying to think if this new program is actually working, right? I mean, if you have a program which has been working for 10 years and say, hey, we know that more or less is working and more. But if we have a new thing, for managers, it would be important to say, hey, are we doing the right thing? Are we because of this design, what happens in the field, does it make sense, right? And therefore, later on, we added field work to these design evaluations, not to all design evaluations, but we didn't have enough money to do this. But for some key programs, we did that, right? So therefore, in the Indian case, perhaps you'll need to decide if you stick to a cabinet analysis, which is of course cheaper, or in which circumstances you have to, or you need to, you want to go again also to a field work. Okay, so in the case of the cabinet analysis, these are the main sections of the evaluation. So we have like around 30 questions, and these are the main elements. Justification of the reason of why we designed this program. What is the contribution of this program to the national goals? What is the potential and target population? What if there is a beneficiary registry? Which are the results of the logical framework that the program produced perhaps the previous years, last year or 2 years ago? Is it clear about budgeting and accountability in their processes? Which are the complementaries and coincidence with other federal programs? And we have in this evaluation a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and we have the conclusions. So we have these 30 questions. I'm not going to go over all the questions. Another way of dividing this analysis is we have the program overview, the rationale for the creation and design of the program with many questions, planning and orientation to results, program operating mechanisms, and complementarities, coincidences, and coordination with other programs. So this is another way of dividing that cabinet analysis. And we have this type of questions. I'm not going to go to all of them, but what problem does this intervention is trying to solve? What was the diagnostic made to decide that this public intervention was needed? What is the total population that suffers this problem? Why was this alternative of public intervention decided and not another one? Why we decided this one and not a different one? Did we search a lot in what was happening in similar countries with similar problems? Why this intervention is going to solve the problem? Why are we sure that this is going to happen from our point of view? What do we deliver? How and how can we do that? Some of the questions. Is there a theoretical or empirical justification that supports this type of intervention? We go over and over to this type of questions, trying to push for policymakers and say, why did you choose this type of, why did you choose this type of program? We had an option of 10 potential types of delivery for the same problem, right? Why did you choose this one at this very moment in this place in Mexico, in India, in Bangladesh, in Bhutan? Why today and why this? So we have a set of questions. I don't want to go. Is there a logical link to the SDGs in the Mexican case? Is there a logical thing of this program with the National Development Plan? Are there clear mechanisms for selecting the beneficiaries? Has the program a plan to increase the coverage if needed? So we have these like 30 questions. And this is a very interesting part of our evolution in Mexico is, so at the beginning we had asking the states, yes and no, with a proof from the program, right? But then we thought that only having yes or no was not enough to understand what is happening there. And therefore we included, if the program didn't have, it was a no, did you have this? No, okay, that's enough. But if it was yes, is it true that you have a document where you are putting clearly the objectives of the program and whatever? When it was a yes, according to the evaluator, we asked for 4 possible levels of that yes. Because of course it's not this, I mean, you can have the answer, but a positive answer, yes. But but you may have a better ways of answering that question. And therefore we asked the evaluators when there was a yes to have 4 possible levels. So for instance, the problem that the program seeks to solve is identifying a document that has the following information. The problem is formulated as a negative fact or as a situation that can be reserved. The population that has a problem or need is defined. There are systematic plans to update this information. So we are asking more about the program, and therefore, because we are being more strict about the answer, not only yes or no, then according to the elements that answer was given by the program, we put levels. 1, if it was a yes, but it was a poor yes, or 4, if it was yes and all the elements were there. So not in all questions, but in many questions we had no, yes, and if we were yes at different levels. So we were aiming, I mean, the idea to have this is, if we're going to have another evaluation in the future of this program, we want to know if they improve their levels between 1 and 4. Not only yes and no, but if they were yes, if it was a yes, if they improved from 1 to 4. That was the idea of this rating. Nevertheless, I have to tell you that in some evaluations we stopped doing this. We stopped doing this because it looked for programs as if you were marking them and you were saying, hey, 1 is really bad, 4 is really good, you are really good. So in the way we produce that, although it was a good idea for certain elements, it was not a good idea for other elements, for the pressure on programs. So as we said before, when you have an evaluation, we have to be very careful about the politics of all this. And therefore, the way in which we produce technically an evaluation, we have to really be careful about the results and about, even if it's a good intention to have different rates and different numbers and different marking, if that is not working for the trust between the evaluator and the program, well, perhaps we have to change the way in which we produce the technical process. All right, so I tell you this because I wanted to be very frank about the processes and saying, hey, I don't want to say, hey, everything that we do is perfect. Everything that we did is being wonderful. No, sometimes it is good for certain, as a certain moment in time with a program, but it perhaps not a good idea for another year for another program. For example, in this year and since 2018, we do have a government in Mexico who doesn't favor evaluations that much. Therefore, if that is the case, unlike previous governments, then we have to change somehow the type of evaluation. It doesn't mean that we're going to say everything is right. No. It's the way we produce evaluations should differ according to the circumstances of the country, and these circumstances change from year to year. So that's the cabinet part. And then for the field work, what we do in some of the programs, not all of them, is that we selected some of the processes with this type of analysis. So the processes of planning or the diffusion, the process of beneficiary applications, the selection of beneficiaries. So we put all the potential processes that we have in a new program, and then we selected the most important ones for that program to say, hey, we will have our cabinet analysis. We have to go to the field just to check if the key processes, perhaps one or two, not 8 processes because it's costly. So we need to see in the field if these specific processes match the design and the cabinet analysis that we are having at the same time. So for every program, we have this set of processes, and we select 1 or 2 processes to go to the field work. So together with the cabinet analysis, we can see clearly if the design that we have in the program makes sense, or it is logical at least, right? So as I said before, this is a new element that we included for some programs, because some programs were really keen saying, hey, that's fine, but what about the field work? What about, is it true that we are doing the proper thing according to the design of the program, right? So with all these elements, we've been having 10 years of design evaluations together with other types of evaluations. And this is the type of recommendations that we have generated so far. So one is about the broadening diagnosis to have more knowledge about the needs. So this type of understanding about the is important. Sometimes we have reconsidered coverage, right? If the design doesn't match with the coverage that we're looking for, we reconsider, we change the coverage. It is important to clearly define the target population and the potential populations. We can establish medium and long-term coverage strategies for the population. Sometimes we improve the dissemination of documents, so all stakeholders should be aware of exactly what this program is about and what do you need to get a program, and disseminate the reasons why this program is important. Sometimes it goes to changing some of the documents of the program. Hey, this logical framework was not clear. This element in the documentation of the program was not clear. We have to change it. And of course, from this evaluation, we had many suggestions and recommendations to change the log frame and to change the indicators, no? Right? I mean, as you know, placing and having indicators for programs is not an easy task. Yeah? Having the indicators for your outcome strategies that you have in India, which is a very important way of analyzing the programs. I'm telling that everywhere I go. I say, hey, you have to look at the outcome-output strategy in India. That is fine. Nevertheless, the indicators are not easy, right? So we have to keep in mind if these indicators make sense and why they make sense now, and perhaps we have to change them. And the design evaluation in the Mexican case, because it's centered in the log framework, then it's very useful to be aware if the indicators we have make sense, right? So this is what I have for today. I wanted to be very concrete, and of course there are so many things that we can talk about. And if there's another chance, we can do it again. So I want to stop here just to have an option for questions and some answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gonzalo. I mean, that presentation was really full of insights and learnings for all of us. We will take questions now. Our first question is from Dr. Avinash Das, who is director in the evaluations vertical here. The first question is, how do we know a priori that the design work? With initial data, we may go ahead with some intervention, but the design has to be tested, maybe through a pilot. And also another linked question, probably I put that at the same time, is stage do we conduct a design evaluation? Is it immediately after starting the program or after a few years?
These are very good questions, and these are not easy to answer. But I would say like this. All right. So imagine that the policymaker wakes up one day and he says, "Hey, I know how to solve undernutrition in Mexico or in any place. We need to deliver sushi to houses, right?" Why he said that? Well, because he was perhaps craving for sushi, and he said, "Hey, this is a good idea. Fish is very useful. Fish is very nutritious. Let's go and deliver sushi to households." So the design evaluation and the log framework are tools to really push that policymaker. Say, "Hey, why we have to deliver sushi? Why sushi and not tortillas or not bread? Or why do we have to do that?" And that's so with these evaluations, perhaps it is not, perhaps the ideal design is not clear for anyone, but at least if we ask sincerely ourselves, why did we decide these in a somehow critical way? Evaluations are critical. They are not critical. They are pushing us. If we do that through the evaluation, if we do that through the construction of the log framework, there are many occasions when we say, "Hey, yes, sushi delivery was not a good idea. It was very expensive, and it didn't make sense," right? Let me give you a concrete example. Some years ago, a new president came to Mexico, and he had a good idea how to improve the work of young people. Well, young people are difficult to get a job for various reasons. For instance, sometimes they ask for experience, but since you are just leaving school, you don't have experience. Therefore, for many reasons, it's very difficult for young people to have good, immediate jobs or good jobs. So this president designed a program called First Job Program. People, and they really put a lot of effort in designing the program, and they assign a lot of money to do this. And then from Coneval, from the evaluation unit, we thought, hey, this is an important program for a new president. We have to produce an impact evaluation. We have to have an impact evaluation to show if this very expensive program is going to have results in terms of improving the job for young people. So in our program annual program plan evaluation, we did have the impact evaluation. Nevertheless, we also included a design evaluation. And by the way, it was one of the council members who thought very wisely, say, hey, yes, an impact evaluation is fine. This is an important program. If we think of important programs, we need to have impact evaluations to show the results and to show the impact in a rigorous way. Nevertheless, he says, we have to remember these are very expensive evaluations, and they take some time to get results. So let's combine an impact evaluation in the medium term with a very immediate design evaluation. And it was great that we did that, because in the first semester of the program, it was clear through a design evaluation that the design of the program was very problematic. There were very few people interested in the program, and the main reason was that the design was so complicated. I mean, I remember so many people working on the design, and I don't know if because of that, it was a very complex design. We wanted to have so many elements in the program and so many things that it was very complex, and employers didn't get clearly why this program was going to help them, and therefore no one was asking for this program. So we had a lot of money, and the program wasn't working, and therefore the design evaluation showed that it was a cheaper evaluation than the impact evaluation, and therefore we stopped doing the impact evaluation because it was clear that through a design evaluation, the design was not clear. So it's a long answer to say, we need to think carefully at the beginning how to produce that, and as you said correctly, ideally it would be great to have pilots, right? It would be great always to have pilots. Say, hey, when we have new programs, because we have so many chances of failing, let's spend a short budget. Let's make it a pilot. Let's test it. Let's have an evaluation of that pilot in different ways. And if that works, we can then expand the program. If it doesn't work, we have to change the design or change certain elements. So ideally, we have a pilot. Nevertheless, in reality, it's not always that easy for governments to allow to have a pilot. Sometimes the governments say, hey, this is the idea, we have to do it, and we have to announce it, and we have to put it nationally. I mean, well, that's how we work in politics. And that is why we have to do these evaluations, even if it's not a pilot, right? So I think I somehow answered both questions. But perhaps.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalo.
Yeah.
So we just have time now for two more questions which we have received. One is from Vaishvi. She says, sir, can you please elaborate upon the legal framework you mentioned earlier? Is it the same as the ethics framework?
So I mentioned the log framework. So I mentioned a lot the log framework, which is the logical framework. That perhaps you're with. So I mentioned that a lot because that was the center of the planning activities in the Mexican case, and it's the center of the design evaluations that we have. The center is the log framework, the logical framework. No? If I mention the legal framework, it is perhaps I mention it because, I mean, these programs have rules, and these programs have documentations, and you have to follow them for the legal processes. And of course, you have to assess in the design evaluation, you have to assess if the legal framework, if the documentation that is legal of this program makes sense for the design, right? So sometimes it happens, and it happens a lot in Latin America, that you have so many restrictions in terms of the operation and legal restrictions or legal elements that the design of the program, due to those legal elements, is not clear, and is affecting the results of the program. So if I mention the legal framework, is because of that, which is different from the ethics framework. Is completely different from the ethics framework.
Thank you. And our last question is from Himanshu Dubey. Himanshu, would you like to ask the question on your own?
I would like to congratulate Dr. Gonzalo for the presentation. It was very well articulated and structured and very well communicated. Sir, my question is, if most of the schemes are designed and implemented by the center through the states, so the same scheme is implemented across the country. So if we talk about India, a country which is so much diverse, has different various states, just like Mexico, the same capacity of the state to implement the scheme varies, and also due to geography and other socioeconomic parameters across the states also varies. Then how do you suggest we can go about assessing the same design across the country for all the states? Do you suggest we should go for some kind of SWOT analysis for each of the states for achieving this?
That's a very good question, because first of all, so if you see through various evaluations internationally that delivering this service or this product to address this problem, if many evaluations show that this type of design is not working in many parts of the world, then there is a chance that it doesn't work in your country, right? So if my friend is asking to deliver sushi for reducing undernutrition, and if this type of programs never worked, we have to be aware that that design may not be the best one to reduce undernutrition. So there are some universality elements when we say that the design is not working. Nevertheless, it is also true that because of the difference in the geography, the difference in the composition of the population, differences in political processes in states or in countries, what works in a place doesn't exactly work the same in another place, and therefore you have to somehow change the design, somehow change some processes in order for that program to work on that state, right? In the Mexican case or Latin American case, and I'm sure that happens in India. So in the Mexican case, you have the element of the indigenous population. So you have states where you have a high percentage of indigenous population, and therefore it is very obvious that if the design doesn't include the language and documents in the language of the indigenous population, then that program is not going to work. Whereas in states without the presence of indigenous population, even poor states, you don't need that element in the design of the processes, right? And I'm sure the same happened. So it's interesting in the Indian case that you could have the evaluation at the same time of the same programs in various states. So you can see differences and say, hey, in this state, it works because of this. In this state, it doesn't work because of other elements. And therefore, there's a chance for you to analyze diversity in the states. So the fact of having states, important states in India, it's perhaps a good source of of analysis and comparability between regions for the same program, right?
Thank you so much, Dr. Gonzalo. I would now request our DDG, Mr. Anthony Syriac, to please give the closing remarks.
It was, thank you, Bhavna. It was really an illuminating presentation. My take homes directly come to the things. First is something what we normally forget. When we do project appraisal or process evaluation or impact evaluation, we normally underestimate the power of the simple yes or no questions and the simple whys, the simple why questions. And so what this presentation reminded us very forcefully is that when a problem is proposed to be solved through a project or a program, ask all the possible yes or no questions on each component of the project, and then then it becomes, it seems actually very simplistic, but it is not so. After yes or no, you dig deep, and then you come to the whys. Why is this the best? Why is this component best suited? So once you are satisfied with all the yes or no's and whys, then you kind of clear the project from your side. And this is all by assuming that the politics is by your side. The politics is by the side of the evaluator. And otherwise, I mean, which is what explicitly mentioned by Dr. Gonzalo at the end of it. All this is possible if the political will exists to have the program analyzed threadbare before its implementation. And the complexity of an apparently simple framework that Dr. Gonzalo framed made manifest when Himanshu asked that question. When the nation has 35 different constituents, all vastly varied in geographical, cultural, linguistic, and socioeconomic context. This kind of evaluation needs to be done in all heterogeneous contexts. So that actually puts to perspective the effort, the huge effort which is required to have straight-jacketed programs to ensure some kind of a success in a centrally planned program in federated democracies. So it's actually very difficult to have a uniform measure of success in federations for components which are homogeneous, for program components which are homogeneous. Then unless one takes the best of precautions in the beginning, it's bound to fail somewhere. You may have isolated successes, but it's bound to fail in many places where the program doesn't suit. Dr. Gonzalo, it has been a great learning experience, and our DG was very keen to be part of the presentation all the while, but he had to leave in between. He was actually actively encouraging all of us through WhatsApp messages. Join, those who haven't joined, join please. So thank you very much for your time. And in fact, DG was mentioning that you would be in India very soon, and so looking forward to seeing you and hearing your words again very soon. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much, Anthony, and thank you very much to all of you for your time. And yes, so hopefully I'll see you by the end of June. Hopefully. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bhavana, and all of you, and Dr. Bono.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gonzalo. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.